So welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. This is part of our series for organizational thought leaders. So it's a little bit different than what we traditionally do. We're doing a bunch of these in the coming weeks on folks that are embedded in organizations and companies that utilize thought leadership as part of their functional role. So with that being said, today my guest is Joan Driggs. Joan is the VP of Content and Thought Leadership at Information Resources, Inc. I'll give you her quick bio. She attributes curiosity as key to her 30-plus year career as a results-driven market researcher, CPG trade journalist, and thought leader. So let's just welcome aboard, Joan, instead of me spending all day reading your bio here. So you are at IRI and you are a VP of Content and Thought Leadership. So let me ask you sort of two questions. One is, how do you define thought leadership? And then what does a VP of Content and Thought Leadership do?
Well, IRI, thanks for having me, Peter.
Oh, my pleasure.
IRI is a data and analytics company, and we provide a lot of solutions for CPG retailers and manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
So across our broad spectrum of solutions are some amazing stories. I work with a lot of very smart people who love to hide behind Excel spreadsheets, and I try and extract some of that great storytelling to make what we do and the impact it has on the market a little bit more digestible for our clients and others.
So let me unpack that a little bit. So it's not necessarily that you are anointed the official thought leader of IRI and everything that you say is what is. Part of what you're doing is, well, extraction sounds painful, but extracting and then curating and supporting the domain experts that you have in the field in the organization. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, a lot of what we do is important for the people who I work with. Trying to gather a lot of information from different parts of the company so that people are aware of what we have going on and what it means to their job. It's amazing how much macroeconomic data is out there that you don't really think of when you're looking at an Excel spreadsheet.
Got it. So let's go back to the definition then. So, I think it's one of these, if you ask 10 practitioners to define thought leadership, sometimes you get 11 answers. So how do you define it, or you define it in the context of your role at IRI?
So that's a really good question. I look at it in terms of how can I provide the information and insights that help people do a better job of framing up their own work, as well as helping others in the industry understand what that big picture is and their role in it. We're all trying to make things easier for our clients, more, relevant to brands and manufacturers and retailers. And sometimes it takes that level set, that bigger picture, to help people understand what they're contributing to, what's coming down the pike. You can imagine in these incredibly turbulent times, everybody wants to get a look ahead. And that's pretty much what we're trying to provide.
Got it. Great stuff. So let me start with this. How do you differentiate then thought leadership from content marketing? And it's not that one is better than the other. They're different and they have different goals in different appropriate places. So how do you where would you draw the line between the two?
I don't think that I think of it in terms of content marketing, but that's not to say that what I do isn't used for content marketing. And I say that because there's so many different elements to our business that people just might not be aware of. So if I'm inviting people in for a broader conversation, you could argue that it's content marketing, but as far as I'm concerned, it just happens to be part of the story that I'm telling.
Yeah, and you mentioned the story a couple of times in terms of the spreadsheets, et cetera. I think that part of the challenge that subject matter experts have, or technical folks have, or really specialized folks have when trying to get information, data, et cetera, out to a broader audience that may think differently than they do is sort of the basics of storytelling and the narrative and making it intriguing. Because for us folks that don't enjoy spending hours and hours on spreadsheets, a spreadsheet does tell a story, and it's a trend. It's either looking forward or looking backwards or whatever. And usually, or I shouldn't say usually, but oftentimes the folks that are great spreadsheet jockeys, if you will, might not be the greatest storytellers. How would you thread that needle maybe
That's
more
exactly
eloquently than I said
No,
it?
I think you're absolutely right. And that's okay. That's why
Yeah.
people like me are around, because they are very comfortable in their own world. But when you get them talking about different things, go back to that spreadsheet, that Excel, there's so many interesting things that we can pull out, whether it's demographics or
Mm-hmm.
trends. How about let's talk in terms of one of the big things that we do every year. It's called our annual new product pace setters. And what we
Mm-hmm.
do is we track the top selling CPG products across food and non-food for a year. So for example, we
Okay.
would have pulled everything from 2019. And we get so much data about these different products.
Mm-hmm.
But when we dig into it in terms of telling a story, we might focus on where in the store or what attributes people are really buying into.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like energy drinks were really big.
Sure.
What is it about the energy drinks? Who's actually buying them? Why are,
Well, and who wins and who loses, right? So
yeah,
if somebody's buying an energy drink, what are they not buying? So you have, I mean, typically in a grocery or a CPG world, there are winners and losers, right? When a new
absolutely.
category pops out. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
But we can look at it and say, you know what? These are really popular products. They're selling, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of product. At the same time, they're contributing to something bigger. Now, someone
mm-hmm.
hiding behind a spreadsheet wouldn't be thinking about that. They'd be thinking about, I've got this great product. I market
Mm-hmm.
the bejesus out of it,
Yep.
and here's what it looks like. But it's like, I want to put it in context. What is happening in people's lives that they're buying so much of this product? Is it a lifestyle choice? What is it?
Right. Is it a demographic shift? Is it yeah, exactly. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So I want to touch for a moment or two on sort of the place where people get stuck or trapped as it relates to deploying thought leadership in a business context.
Mm-hmm.
And it's around the KPIs and the metrics, right? So how do and every organization is different, but when do you define those metrics? What are those metrics? How do you know if something's working or not? When to feed it more resources versus pull back? How do you handle that?
That is a good point, and something that I would admit that we probably struggle with, because so many people want to put a dollar figure on, what is this contributing to our business?
Mm-hmm.
And with things like thought leadership, that's more of a soft ROI. Again, I'm referring to these, current turbulent times that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
People are so appreciative of the information that we're pushing out to our clients and to the world at large about what's happening in CPG retail. So we don't necessarily see that going straight to our bottom line, but it sure
Okay.
is building loyalty.
So let's go there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You used an interesting term. So in some contexts, it is easy or easier to track the investments in thought leadership against some sort of a measurable outcome, right? Someone spoke at a conference and therefore met this person and that led to that, or et cetera, or downloads on a white paper or whatever. There are things that closer to correlation. I like the term, or I'm intrigued by the term, soft ROI. And to me, I think that's about, and I want to hear what you're saying, the relationship that you have with your vendors and clients and the important pieces where they're coming to you looking for thought leadership. And it's just part of the deal. It's sort of part of what you're about and part of how you decommoditize in the ultimate business of commodity. How would you define a soft ROI?
Yep, and that is exactly it. It goes beyond those downloads. It goes beyond the impressions that we're making to the relationships that we're genuinely building. And again, you can't really necessarily put a dollar figure on that. I mean, hopefully, eventually you'll be able to.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I think it's more important, particularly in our business, that we're building up a great, strong reputation as being a company that has its eyes open, has its pulse on what's happening, and can deliver against it.
And also gives me the insights I need for me to make decisions on my business if you're part of my ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that is top of the list.
So how important is it for you from a functional perspective to get the buy-in of senior leadership, right? Of this is important, and like who's the sponsor internally, or how does that happen?
It varies. It varies because there are some people in our organization who are coming to me with, oh, I've got this great idea, or help me with this. Can we socialize this more? At the same time, I think where the challenge is when I'm working on something bigger that has more arms, there might be an element, a piece of that puzzle that I really want to include that people are busy and it's maybe this isn't their top priority of the day or the hour. So
let me just pause you there to make sure I understand. So there's buy-in at the leadership level, but it sounds like what you're part of your challenge is at the field level where you want people to contribute and create and be part of the process. They have other things to do, right?
Right.
So you're basically asking them to volunteer. Hey, on top of your already busy days, would you do some research, do some writing, do some whatever? So you have to sort of internally sell that to folks.
Yes. And I do have to sell that. But at the same time, in this modern age, I'm able to leverage their contribution so much further. So it's not just a white paper. It could be a podcast. It could be a blog. It could be a speaking engagement. Could be interviews with the media. There's so many other things that people are seeing like, wow, I really got a lot of mileage out of my small contribution to this project.
So how do they get recognized for that? So for example, I was talking to a gentleman the other day at a very large consulting firm, top 5. And at a certain level in the organization, sort of that pre-partner level, thought leadership is part of their compensation, right? So if they're saying, listen, if you want to be partner, and I don't know what the percentage was, but let's say for argument's sake, it's, 5% of your bonus is going to be 10% or something, like a number, but not the number, right? Is going to be attributed to your ability to be contributing thought leadership, which I thought was really, really cool because people tend to react to what you pay them for. And if you're not doing that, cool. What are the other things that you can do to acknowledge, reward, recognize folks for contributing? Like what's in it for them? Like what do they get? Kudos? Do they get recognized? Like what's the benefit from them, either short-term, career-wise?
My gratitude.
Okay.
We don't have, as far as I'm aware, we certainly don't have anything that's tying it to compensation in any way. But there are a lot of people who have come to me saying, I want more exposure to top leadership. And this is a way for me to gain that exposure.
Okay, no, but so gratitude is great. But if this is an entree, hey, listen, if I'm some middle manager at a big company and I have aspirations to get to the next level or get recognized or do some things, I could either be a high performer, I could, achieve things, I can take on assignments that other people don't. But I think your point is well taken is that, if the powers that be see a piece that was written, they say, who was that? Oh, that's Bob from Philadelphia. Well, who's Bob? I mean, he's a smart fellow, or Barbara, or whoever it is. Like, is that sort of the argument?
That's the argument. And at the same time, for those people who already have extremely wide visibility, it's further reach. It's, again, extending or leveraging the work that they're doing for different things. I've taken presentations and turned them into podcasts, turned them into white papers, socialized more of it. So it is making the most of what we have.
Fantastic. I want to expand on a point you just made there, which is the modalities and the repurposing piece. So I think that people are getting more sophisticated from an efficiency perspective, right? It used to be you create something and it lives in that format in that way, full stop, right? So if I write a white paper, it's a white paper. If I do a podcast like we're doing today, it's a podcast. But I think it doesn't take a lot of energy to be thoughtful and say, wait a minute, Peter and Joan just spent a half an hour on this podcast. What else might we do with that? Well, we can turn it into a blog, we can turn it into short form, whatever. How do you tackle that?
Well, and that's the question of the day, is how we can leverage these things, because as you know, as a regular consumer, you have different attention spans, you have different needs, you're looking
Yep.
for different types of information, and you absorb all of that in completely different formats. So what I'm trying to do, and I think a lot of people are trying to do, is say, okay, for this group, is it a quick video? Is it an infographic?
Yep.
Is it just socializing things with links so that if people want a deeper dive, they
Sure.
can go there? We try and investigate all of that and use as much of it as makes sense. I mean, some of the things that we do are pretty high level. It's
Sure.
really for people
Sure.
who are, very deep in the weeds, highly analytical. That's not something that I'm going to socialize as widely. I'm going to be very clever, maybe do a webinar and invite just
Sure.
those people who I think will benefit from it.
So I like what you said, because I think a lot of people don't do that, which is, being thoughtful around who's consuming it and how. So if you're going to send content out to a busy new mother, she's probably not going to read a white paper. But if she's got 30 seconds while she's online at the checkout at the grocery, and she's looking at it on mobile, which is a different experience, right? Most content is consumed mobile now. What can you give her in short nuggets? Maybe it's a 20, 30-second video or something a little punchier, et cetera, where there are times where, depending on your audience, et cetera, yeah, it might be appropriate to have a 30, 40-page white paper with
Right.
the appropriate references and footnotes and all that. But
Right.
yeah,
And I know, for example, like with COVID-19, which is pretty much taking all of my time, we've created a dashboard. So it's, accessible mobily too. So it's not just the bigger reports, but it's regular updates, it's implications, little nuggets that people can take away. So it is all of those things, but it's something that had to be put together pretty rapidly as a response mechanism.
sure.
And again, giving people all those options of how they want to consume information.
Well, I like the concept of a dashboard. So obviously the COVID issue is happening quickly. People are scrambling, there's confusion, whatever. But if you can sort of help the world that matters to you by giving some clarity to all of this overwhelming information, say, here's a quick dashboard. You go in and pull what you want in the way that you want it. We're just going to compile all that for you. That's incredibly valuable during high stress times of uncertainty and chaos and such.
Yep.
And so that being said, I think that also speaks to the balancing of scheduling and flexibility, right? So I'm sure prior to this, you had a somewhat of an editorial calendar that just got blown up, and then you had to say, well, okay, we obviously clearly we have to change our priorities based on what everybody needs and do that. Not everybody can pivot that quickly. How has that adjustment been to you in the organization?
Well, maybe it's all the yoga I've been doing. I don't know.
So you're right. Okay, so yoga equals more effective thought leadership, right?
Flexibility. Right. It really is deciding day to day, moment to moment, what is most important and who can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Some things just have a longer shelf life. And
yeah, that's right.
So that might have to wait a little bit.
Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate all your time and your wisdom and sharing with us things that are a little bit different than what we normally do. But I think the application for someone in an organization, there's lots and lots of folks, there's lots more people like you, Joan, that are doing this, sort of internally in organizations. And, hopefully these type of conversation will be helpful to others as well.
I hope so, because I learned from others. So
yeah.
Thanks so much for including me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. See you.
If you enjoyed this episode, and I do hope that you did, please join our new LinkedIn group, which is exclusively focused on the organizational thought leader, the person in the corporate world that is using thought leadership as part of their job, whether that's developing thought leadership, whether that's deploying thought leadership, whether that's helping others do so. Please take a look and check out our LinkedIn group. We think you'd get a lot of benefit from that. Thank you.